Welcome, listeners of a particularly sinister persuasion, to this very bonus episode of 6+++, and it's an Archonference. This is the first time attempting a little UK gathering of Drukhari players and fans and experts, some of the best minds, the people I like to chat to all the time about the wonderful Drukhari. We're gathering them here today to have a look at what they think of the new Reaper's Wager Detachment. I, of course, am your host, Tom, and I love Drukhari, so this is super exciting. This is going to be really, really fun. I don't want to waste too much time with the intros, but I've briefed my players here, my cast of players, that they will be introducing themselves, giving you a little bit of context, and then they're going to tell you their favourite, fun, interesting fact about either them and Drukhari or Drukhari, whatever they like. And they are, of course, because it's a Drukhari episode, they are, of course, vying against one another for my approval, because that's how this works. I'm going to start with the wonderful Sky Serpent, Paulie, down there in the bottom right. Paulie, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. Thank you for having me on this our conference. I'm used to hosting a show talking about Dark Elder. It's nice to go on a different one.
Yeah, man. Put your feet up a little bit. It's good. So tell us a little bit. Obviously, as I say, you'll be very well known, Paulie, but tell us a little bit about your background and then your Drukhari fact.
I can't think of a random one. There's one thing I tell people they're always shocked by, but I don't like orange. I don't like the colour.
I love that one.
Everyone assumes I love orange, but it's... Long story short, Philip Kenny had an orange Sky Serpent. It's closest to canon, so that's why my army is orange. But I don't really like it. I don't like painting it.
Wearing orange right now.
I know. He's got one of the most beautiful Drukhari armies you'll ever see, and it is. There's a lot of orange on there, but yes, he's done with it. I reckon maybe over time that's got to you, Paulie, just because you've had to work with it so much.
Oh yeah, it's PTSD from orange.
I'm also joined. This is his first ever time on the show by the lovely Adam Gawley. Adam, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Right, tell people about your relationship to the Dark Kin, Adam.
Yeah, I started with some hand-me-downs in 5th edition when I was just a wee little lad, and I was 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. Got back into it halfway through 9th or so when Drukhari were at the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for 9th edition at least. Which still wasn't really that low.
No, it was pretty good.
And yeah, just went from there. It's been my main army since.
Fantastic.
And yeah, just carrying on.
And yeah, of course, you came to my attention at a Warhammer World event.
Yes.
I was chatting to you there, and I was like, oh, this young man knows how to play Drukhari. It's very good. I actually wasn't running Drukhari at that event. I was running CSM.
No. Well, that was going to be my fun little fact. Was that
oh, no, there you go.
My best event placing was one where I beat you. You weren't playing Drukhari though.
No, I was not. I got like 20-0'd by Chaos Demons round 1 at that event. I went all in on Scarbrand and left him on 1 wound. That was it wasn't good. It was really funny.
I was 20-0'd by Chaos Knights.
That'll do it. But yeah, I am also joined tonight by the Architect of Flesh, as he's known in some circles, or Julio as we know him. Julio, how are you?
Hello everyone, I'm very good. Thank you very much, Tom, for having me. Long time Drukhari player, long time Drukhari collector actually, because my very first starter set, not my very first Warhammer model, but my very first starter set was the starter set of 3rd edition, which had Black Templars and Drukhari.
Amazing.
So yeah, I still have some of those, which I absolutely despise because I didn't like the old models. But when instead, later on, the new Drukhari range came out, I absolutely fell in love with them.
Yes.
And I'm playing them since. I haven't been playing them much in 10th edition, but I am playing them since, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've always been playing them in the UK scene for a very long time. And you've got even your... Eldari that you use sometimes have some conversions that are quite sinister, right? You quite like leaning into the sort of horror vibe.
Yeah, that's correct. All my Eldari are converted to look Drukhari-ish, to be very grim and body modification, body horror. Often I got people looking at them and say, this model is marvelous, but so disgusting.
Yeah, it's the Wraith Knight for me. There's a Wraith Knight which it's like the thing from Alien on the face. It's really good. Really, really good.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. I am also joined tonight by the lovely Ben Pierce. He's a recent collaborator of ours. And he's actually, I know for a fact, he's been making content for us today already. But he just decided he hadn't worked enough, and he's here for some more. So, Ben, tell people about yourself as far as Drukhari is concerned.
Exactly. Evening, gents. So I have only been playing Drukhari for not even a year at this point right now.
Mm-hmm. You're the newest. You're a baby. Yeah.
I am a baby Archon. They were just space for me. The little boy that Harlequin left. Mm-hmm. And now I get the best of both. and I'm so happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So happy.
Yeah, so I was going to say, this detachment for you and for me both, as people who quite enjoy soupy Drukhari and Harlequins, so we'll get into it in a moment, but it's a godsend. But I think that's probably where, if there's any sort of mixed feelings about it, that's the one. So how this is going to work, guys, is I've got a few prompts. I'm going to pick my Archon's brains on all sorts of different things. They are all very, very strong players in their own right. They've all got a lot of experience with Drukhari, and they've all analysed this, and I know for a fact because we've talked about it for a lot since it came out. But if you, the listeners in the chat, have questions relating to the Reaper's Wager detachment or Drukhari more broadly, you can chat them in the chat and we will endeavour to field them. As ever, thank you for supporting us. Please do hit like and subscribe, and you can leave a comment as well. That will help our algorithm. And if you're interested in supporting 6++ financially, you can sign up on YouTube as a member, chuck us a little bit of money that way. I'm keen to do a lot more of these. I really enjoy getting other people and my mates in the game together to natter, so hopefully we'll have more conferences for you down the line. Okay, so Reaper's Wager. I'm going to start with overall impressions. And I know one person I know is in a good position to give an overall impression is someone that I was slaving away on the review for Goonhammer with, and that is, of course, Sky. So I thought I'd open you up, Sky. You can go first and let us know what's your kind of having had time to sort of get your head around it. What's your sort of overall impression of the new Reaper's Wager detachment for Drukhari?
I think it's really exciting. I think for me, as someone who enjoys every sort of facet of the hobby, I love the lore, the background, the modelling, and obviously gaming as well.
Yeah,
I think this, out of all the detachments, not just the Grotmas ones, but like in general, I think they've really sort of nailed it on the head, like bringing like the lore to life.
Completely.
Is it a detachment where could it have been a bit something easier, like an easier buff? Or like something a bit more straightforward. Whereas I think for Drukhari players, it's always been a high skill level finesse sort of army.
Yeah,
and now you have to it really rewards like strong calculation. I'm sure we're going to use the buzzword tempo in a bit about control the tempo, and it rewards that element of it. And the strats are amazing. It's really fun. There's a lot to go into it, and I think what I found really interesting is via social media, via my blogs and other sort of groups, there's been quite a few people who think the detachment is bad initially, and then a few people who, come on to a bit sort of like lukewarm, and some who hit it hot straight away.
Yeah,
and I find the temperature is like going up and down on people. But
yes,
at the same time, I'm really excited. Like I will definitely run it. I think after a bit of analysis, will it be the detachment I stay with? I'm not sure, but I think there's a lot of tricks to it. Again, we'll go into it in a bit. The strats are just incredible.
Yeah, the toolkit's amazing, right?
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot for Drukhari players. I think some players like myself who don't own lots of Harlequins but not painted, maybe people might feel a bit aggrieved in that sense.
Yes, yeah.
But the Codex Eldari must be, I'd assume, months away. At some point, it's coming early 2025, you'd assume. So this detachment has the opportunity to age well based on how the Harlequin data sheets are received in that book. So
100%. Yeah, I think that's potentially the most exciting. Oh, we've got another entrance. I'm going to add him to the scene. He's just arrived on the scene. It's Archon George of Real Space Raiders. He is also here. George, how are you? I'm dropping him right in. Oh no, he's disappeared. He's all right. He was there, but he's gone. His face shifted out. That's
okay. he reactive moved very quickly.
Yeah, he's jumped right out of there. I'll shout out the chat and give George a chance to get involved. So we've got Patrick says, I am very excited building Harlequins right now. And Mega Miniatures asked a question, which I know is very relevant to field back to Paulie, which is, how are you planning to keep track of the switches between Harlequin and Drukhari benefits during the game? Well, Paulie was the first to find a solution for this. Paulie, do you want to tell people what you've done?
Yes, do you know what? I have it to hand, but I don't. It's in parts now. Whereas if you go onto my blog on Sky Serpent on Facebook or Instagram or X, I believe it's called now, you can see some work in progress pictures. But I'm making a Reaper's Wager coin. I think it's a really sort of fun way to track it. I looked at the idea of using like sort of dollhouse like scales, where you place maybe like a helmet on it to show who was like winning or losing. But yeah, going for a coin, really, really fun to do. If you've used like Sky Weavers, you'll have all the extra sort of the different masks, the big masks, so you can use them to make the Harlequin side of it. And then for the Drukhari bit, you're going to obviously have like a whole slew of Drukhari parts that add to that. And I've used the statue, so I've used the Reaper statue from the Dark Reapers because the Harlequins embody the Reaper in terms of the lore. And then on the Drukhari side, I've used the the incubi statue as well. So
yeah. No, really, really cool. I think that's it. I haven't come up with a token for it yet, but what I will say after playing it for the first time is you will want one. It's definitely useful to know where it's
100%,
bouncing.
100%.
It's very rewarding when you do get a phase where you've managed to bounce it off several different units. And I think, so I think definitely a lot of fun with that. So I guess I'll open it up to the rest of you and just if there were any other sort of overall impressions and sort of overall takes you guys have had from your sort of early games or early thinking about this. Anything to build on from Paulie?
I think it's quite interesting how you can look at it in terms of the detachment rule's strength, because one of the first comments I heard about it, or first line of theories, was you could almost play it like real space, where you don't actually need the detachment rule at all, and you can still run it as a full Drukhari detachment, just because the suite of enhancements and stratagems they do carry a lot of strength.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily need to run the detachment rule. You don't need to run up to 1,000 points of Drukhari, of Harlequins. You can take just 1 or 2 units and almost play as if you don't have the reroll ones to hit and wound.
Yeah.
And then when you do get it and you remember, then great, it's great. But you don't necessarily need to.
No, I completely agree with that. I think if you think about the other things it gives you, and we'll get into those in more depth, there are a whole bunch of tools I really, really value. That actually, when you go back to some of those other detachments, I already know I'm going to miss. Right, there are certain things that are just big parts of playing the game that will feel like a big loss when you go back to Sky Splinter or Real Space. And so, as I say, the army rule is nice and we'll come to it, but it is not essential. And I think they've weighted it well enough that you could play pure Drukhari here and it would be okay. I don't think you would feel at a huge disadvantage.
I think the missing past thing is sort of a nature of having played a lot with the index, and you see it especially with people who play other armies that had a very strong rules. For example, if you think the Grey Knight, for them losing the coming down in 3 or the reactive movement, I say, oh no, this is not possible to play in any other way, which is obviously not the case. It's just they've been so used to just play with those 2 rules.
Yes.
And for us, fortunately or unfortunately, our 2 rules were not that good. So I think it will be much easier to adapt.
Yeah, completely. It is funny that all 3 detachments sort of have a way of just not... Their detachment rule sort of does and doesn't exist depending on how the game's gone, which is kind of funny.
I think if I want to connect to something that Paulie said, is that the reaction to this detachment have been so various. And I think it also because it really varies a lot depending on which eyes and from which position you look at it. Meaning that, you can be a newbie player, you can be a sort of intermediate player with aspiration of being a competitive player. You can be a proper competitive Manichima-like player. And I think these 3 categories, there is a sort of curve. If you are a super competitive player, well, you're not going to smash a Necron 20-0 with this detachment, so you probably don't like it. If you are a newbie and you're maybe still assembling your Drukhari, then, well, you don't want to start assembling Harlequins. And Adam, you're right, you don't need 20 units of Harlequins, but, maybe you're still painting your Venoms. And if instead you are in the middle, then I think there is a lot of excitement. I think surely the detachment is very unique. Very fluffy, possibly after that absurdity that is the Zinj detachment, the most flavorful.
The Zinj one is amazing.
and there are a lot of interesting things in it. Now today we will discuss if they are good, how good, which are the best thing. But definitely is something new. Is something that makes you think.
That was exactly what I felt pushing it around today for the first time. Was like it's doing exciting things and interesting things, and I do feel like there was a flavour there in terms of what was going on and the combinations of units. So I think that was really fun. And I have a bias. I'm definitely in that middle where, as you say, like the Drukhari and Harlequins I already had. So for me, that was ideal. Right, Ben's in the same boat. I would completely understand for a newer Drukhari player if you are coming to this late and you're sort of a bit confused because you've got to go and get Harlequins. That's a bit frustrating. But I think outside of that. And I think we'll be keen to say that if you are a pure Drukhari player, you can definitely use this and you will have a good time. And it may, in the end, be found to be the optimal way of playing it. That's the interesting bit. I'm not ruling that out. I'm absolutely not ruling that out, right? with the current way Harlequin's data sheets are. But so that's going to be very interesting. So I mean, what we'll do is we'll dive a little bit into how the detachment works now and what we think of that. We've alluded to the wager already. But I might just invite you, Ben, to reiterate what the wager is, the detachment rule, and what you think of it. Obviously, you're perhaps the biggest advocate of the souping aspect, so you're the man to tell this story.
He could run full 2,000 points of Harlequins with these rules. He would.
He'd rather just plug in 500 points.
Yeah, exactly. So I have my handy little laminate ready to go.
Look at this preparation! What a pro!
So, callous competition is the detachment rule.
At
the start of the battle, Drukhari units from your army are winning the wager. Already, this rule is wrong. They're always winning.
They certainly were for quite a while.
No, they weren't. So basically, each time a unit, whether it's Drukhari or Harlequins, kills another unit, the wager switches to the opposing faction's unit to be winning.
Yeah.
When you are losing the wager, you re-roll 1s to hit and 1s to wound. If you're winning the wager, good for you. It's the long and short of it.
You get a feeling of pride, which isn't to be sniffed
a crisp high five. It's good, right? You still get pain tokens, so Drukhari probably doesn't care all that much about the wager. It has certain interactions with the stratagems, which I'm sure we'll get onto, but it makes some of them slightly better. Which I only picked up today, actually. So that was a fun and interesting fight on death on 3s. I was like, okay then.
I forgot about the 3s.
This is my favourite part because I knew you would all forget something.
It was good.
Adam watched me play earlier on, and I forgot a lot of stuff, but that's fine. We don't need to talk about that.
It happens.
So I was struck by. I think the thing that I'm struck by is that if you're coming from Eldari, Harlequins, a lot of their units had enough rerolls to get by already with the battle host rerolls, right? So I don't think it feels like a massive change. I'd say the troop unit is an exception. The troop unit has the volume where actually you really feel the rerolls, but most of their other units, it's not a huge change. Solitaire again, maybe once you get up into higher volume, and then for Drukhari, it's a funny one because actually sometimes just some rerolls is great, and because it frees you up a little bit from relying on the pain tokens, which is obviously its own. You know, you've all played some Drukhari, you all know that's a precarious mini game in and of itself. But it's a buff where it doesn't. I guess at their strongest, neither of the components needs it vitally to function. Right, they can all do things without it. What are you guys? Any other sort of jump in thoughts on the detachment rule?
Well, for me, the good thing is, especially at the beginning of Sky Splinter. I was playing a lot of souping Harlequins, but the problem is that if you play Harlequins in Sky Splinter or in Real Space Raiders, you don't get anything out of it, meaning they don't get access to any bonus, they don't get access to any strat. And, maybe the units are good, but there are so many times where you think, I could have done with a reactive move, I could have done with something. And I think the good thing here is that finally they get something out of it, even if you're maybe not... Even if you are messing up the order of activation and you're not getting much from the wager, you still get the strat, you still get the relic. So that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I just say when we get to those, it's like there just is enough gold in there that it's like I will put up with the wager sometimes being out of sync or whatever else. Before we jump onto the next bit, I'm going to attempt to bring Archon George, and I can see him in our waiting room. Let's see how he gets on. Oh, we can hear him. Okay, here he comes. Right. Archon George, welcome. How are you doing?
I decided to rename myself Terrible at Tech Archon.
Yes, I see that.
I just suck with computers, apparently.
That is quite all right. You're very welcome. Of course, George is another big part of Real Space Raiders with Paulie, excellent Drukhari player. We, George, have just been muddling through the detachment rule. We're now going to be jumping in to talking about the enhancements on this new detachment, the Reaper's Wager. And because you're brand new here, I figure let's let you have a run at it first. So what was your sort of overall impression of the enhancements? What was jumping out at you? What do you like? And is there anything that you think could be better or improved?
Firstly, I thought the costings were very fair. It's nice to see. It's nice to see that the point values were kind of appropriate. I'm quite used to our enhancements being, I would say, on the expensive side, which kind of, even though they might be useful, it put them out of play because you were just like, no, that's just too much for what you get. But I felt like all these enhancements were good and fairly priced, so it encourages you to use them, which I like, because that it encourages you to diversify your strategies and use different things. So that was my initial impression, was actually the costings of them are pretty good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's completely fair. And I guess I don't think we can open it up, guys, but in terms of the standouts, in terms of their use and their appeal, which ones have got everyone excited so far?
I feel like Arch Raider has got to be like
Arch Raider.
Yeah.
So Scout move 9ing a Raider, is that fun? As it turns out,
it is very fun.
Okay, and what use have you put it to, Adam, so far?
So you can go two ways. You can either be that smart and tactical, where you have your Quarterly Archon in it, and then obviously the Cavalets give sticky through it.
Yes.
And there is many a map, whether it's UKTC or WTC, or probably most GW as well. You just deploy on the line and scout 9 inches and get onto the middle objective, or even just do a safe expansion. And then if your raid is not actually safe, you just move it back to safety.
Exactly.
And it just forces an overcommitment to unsticky that.
Yeah.
Or you can be very silly and load it full with an Archon and 10 Incubi, and just scout forward, disembark, advance, and charge. Go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it gives you incredible reach, doesn't it? And they're definitely. As I said, I'm still trying to work out with the detachment how sort of full send and how aggro you want to play it. It definitely feels like you can play it very aggressively, right? And this is obviously a core ingredient in that. I say after I deployed today, I was like, and if I put the Raider here or here, which I can't because I put stuff there, I could have stickied an objective with it turn 1 in the midboard. So that's really useful to know. So I think that with the court in, to me, that's the thing I'm probably initially excited about. But I think I agree. Being able to just get absolutely slam dunk someone with Incubi is also quite funny. Any of the other enhancements people have been making use of so far?
I think they're all good. I think my current list uses like 3 of them.
Yeah.
The one I'm tempted by. I think talking about the weirdest one, it's another complicated one which you have to read a lot, right? Which is the Conductor. And I thought at first, I was like, it's trash. Then I was like, it's good. Then I thought it's auto take. And I think it's good. Then it's auto take. Then it's like, I don't think you build for it, but it's really nice, right? Like you can dictate who is winning, losing the wager. Game pain tokens, use them. There will be turns potentially where you want, say you're running a solitaire, you really want the Harlequins to be losing a wager to like get rerolls, like in that sense. So it's nice. The Scout Raider, phenomenal, absolutely. Even Tantalus, it can work with anything. Even like, say for example, Harlequin Troop and the Starweaver becomes good again.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying it's not now, but like say it becomes like the thing to run, like that could be a thing. I think the Reaper's Cowl you're going to see in probably every list at the moment, where I think
absolutely
everyone's probably going to run that Troop Brick with the Troop Master. It's good, right?
Yeah.
And then Webway Warrior is, at first I wrote it off. I was like, "Who's deep striking that?" Rapid Ingress.
That was my reaction.
Why
are we deep
striking? Boys, you guys got to live the Ingress life.
We're straight today. It's like, what was it? 20 points, 15 points?
15.
I think it's 15.
And how much the Raider? 80. So it's like it's exactly 65. Like by ingressing Incubi Brick, who ingress every single game, I save 65 points. So I think it's good. I think it's really good.
I 100% agree. That's the one I've not actually. So I only used the Scouting Raider and the Infiltrating Troop in the game today, but I am excited to work out what a sort of good deep striking unit is, definitely, because again you can use a bunch of different things with that, right? You could use a troop, you could use Incubi, you could use a court again. Court I'm very excited for in this attachment, just because sustain and lethals is just funny. Like it's just a really funny, it's a funny place to go to with it.
I think deep striking a like massive court unit would be quite fun, like because you're coming in with like 10 Carbolites and your court and the Archon with the aura, like the 2 CP aura, so it's really difficult to overwatch them. And you just plonk them down and go, I'm going to go sus 1 and lethals with full rerolls to hit and wound. Like, that can do quite a bit of damage, and you put it somewhere really awkward. It's not a nice unit for people to charge, especially not with like a dedicated assault unit. So it just becomes a real nuisance for your opponent. And it also, if you are playing the more tactical game, it leads you into like 2 of the secret missions quite well. Like the one, get your Warlord on your enemy's home objective, and the get your back line behind enemy lines. So that, like, if you are like playing on the back foot a bit, you've got one linchpin unit that you can just go, here's in your deployment zone or near it, deal it, or I'm going to get 20 on secret. Like,
yeah. No, I like that a lot.
So yeah, pretty good. But I think that's the thing, that they're all good, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice change where like all the enhancements are like useful.
I think Reaper's Cowl, which is the one that people seem the most excited about at first, is possibly the worst one.
Yeah, that's fair.
It gives you this big unit of infiltrating Harlequins that is very good if you play very aggressively.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you think about it, 10 Harlequins with that are not different from 10 Scorpions if you were playing in Nari. It's pretty much the same output. No one was playing 10 Scorpions because they possibly kill something, and then they inevitably gonna die. And the Scorpions are probably 50 points cheaper than the Harlequin unit. So
the question is, though, do the Scorpions have dev wounds on all their weapons?
Ooh.
Yeah, yes, they do.
I didn't know. So.
They do, and they also have some damage too.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I agree with you where I like having it there, and it's funny. I mean, I think it's something we have all talked about in the past. Is that Mandrakes are slightly on the down in terms of their value and use in the overall meta, and they have been for a little while. And for me, it's like, well, it's just nice to have that infiltrate ticked off by a unit that actually is threatening, right? Like, and it definitely is threatening. And it's at least meaty enough that those early game skirmishes that people like to use are not going into, 13 Harlequins and actually killing that unit, right? So I think it requires a meatier commitment from them, but I can already see there's going to be quite a lot of matchups where I'm scared to actually put it forwards because there are armies that can and will just yo-yo off it and flatten it and not be particularly concerned about it. So whether that troop gradually gets shrunk down, I don't know. But yeah, I think you're right. You could probably make the case that it's not actually quite as potent as some of the others.
I think Conductor is actually very good.
Okay.
I'm in the second stage of Polish thinking. It's almost necessary. I think there will be many games in which it's possibly indifferent to have it, but there will be some games in which you might need a pain token, or you might need to switch. Oh, sorry, I have some delay.
Sorry, George, after you.
I know, it's just that there's weird wording on that where it doesn't specify where the character has to be. With the last one, I can't remember the name of it now. The Conductor one, it doesn't specify like he has to be on the board, or he has to be alive, or he has to be like anywhere. So like, I don't know. There's an argument to be made. Like, could you just throw in like a 65-point succubus and hide her somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
you don't even have to either. Arguably, you could put it on a Beastmaster, let him die,
it's a bit
and
of a
then
weird
you still
one.
have the power.
I don't know. I'm assuming their intention was the character to be alive and on the board, but it doesn't actually specify.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's slightly freeing. So I quite like
it.
But
like rules is written. I don't. Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
put him on your beast pack that you throw on board turn 1 and watch it die, and then you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have also a question from Mega Miniatures who's asking whether it's worth considering more Corsairs.
But yeah, I think the Reaper's Cowl is like, yeah, it's one of those ones. It's really makes it gives.
We've got a bit of a delay issue there for George, unfortunately, guys. So we'll just I don't know if someone wants to just message him and warn him that he's lagging off a little bit. But yeah, so we've got a question in the chat from Mega Miniatures about using Corsairs with it and keep Harlequins behind for heroic intervention. I don't know whether can you bring the Corsairs into this attachment? I've not actually looked at doing that.
I think when you look at it, I think it probably is an FAQ, but it looks a bit murky. But I would assume it replaces the travelling players and Corsairs rule from the index, because it talks about 500 points of this, and then if the Harlequin one contradicts it by saying 1,000 points, perhaps that is saying you can't, which for me, as like a big Corsair fan, it's a bit sad. I actually do think Corsairs in an aggro list, when you're having these infiltrating troops and Beastmasters, I think the Corsairs could be the little sprinkling on the top, which is a bit of a shame.
There'd be a good plug in here, wouldn't they?
Well, I think at the moment, until GW say anything official, I would assume not to take Corsairs.
Yeah, for sure. As far as the enhancers, I mean, I think we've covered the basics. You've got your rapid ingress with the deep striking unit. You've got your scouting raider, which can be pressure, can just be sticking things. And the scouting troop, the jury's out on whether in the end people I'd actually rather do some damage of a different kind. But it's all very good. Conductor is also good for actually getting a bit of control over passing it over. I was initially like, well, you're going to have enough pain tokens to spend on stuff like that. But actually, in the mid to late game, you do get a lot of tokens in this detachment, as it turns out, because you do kill quite a lot of stuff. So that's good. And speaking of ways in which you are killing stuff, let's take it to the stratagems. And I'm going to open it up to Adam, because I know Adam's excited about the stratagems. Adam, give us the TLDR on the stratagems, and what have you been using so far in your games?
All right. Well, if you ever wanted a detachment that has 6 very good stratagems, you've found it. Even though one of them is 2 CP, which we'll get to later, it does still come up a lot, and it is very good. But the first one is Malicious Frenzy, which is your shooting phase or the fight phase. One unit from your army, Drukhari or Harlequins, can get lethal or sustained.
Yeah, and the reality is, this is good enough to play the entire detachment, isn't it? If we're being honest, on the units we have, with the abilities they have, this is reason enough to play this detachment.
I would disagree here, Tom.
Okay.
I would say, in my opinion, this is actually one of the most negligible strategies. It's a little bit like the Infiltrators. Looks very good at first. I'm going to sustain. The thing is, our shooting units, now we can go in which is the best shooting unit to use this stratagem, but our shooting units are not great. Harlequin shooting units are also not great. In close combat, once you start running some number, if you are into Math Hammer, in, I would say, possibly 75% of cases, playing this stratagem is the equivalent of having Lance.
Okay.
So you are paying ACP on one unit to achieve something, and mathematically is pretty much the same of what you get from Sky Splinter. So I would say, no, this is my least favorite stratagem.
Adam's got a rebuttal, and I love that the Archonference is descending into feuding and anarchy. That's good. That's how it should be.
I agree, because when you look at like Incubi, obviously is the biggest one here, or the Court. Court already has lethals, that's fine. And then Incubi, if you put the lethals on them, and obviously still get the full rerolls from the Archon, they're going to do the same damage. It's a tiny bit less than what they would get in Sky Splinter. What you don't get access to in Sky Splinter is giving lethal or sustain to a big unit of Grotesques, or to any unit of Hellions. And Hellions obviously already have sustained, and when you give them lethals as well, their damage skyrockets.
Yes.
And I've as you well know, since Hellions had their points draft, I've been a massive Hellion salesman. I love them.
Yes.
I think the stratagem just elevates them to a new level, and they're so cheap for what they do.
Yeah, I think it's finding the certain units that like it, right, and that do vibe with it. So I like the 6-pack of Grotes really likes this. I quite like coasting into multiple squads of Marines and just picking them all up with a 6-brick of Grotes because the sustain just gets them through. The Talos like it. I mean, I didn't use it. I think Talos in combat, once they've got their always empowered on, that's a lot of output in terms of the damage 3 coming through. But as you say, I think for our like infantry and boats, as you say, this perhaps doesn't. This is more of a side grade. I think that's probably a reasonable thing. But no, I really like it. I haven't tried it on Haywire Scourge yet, but I will because I just think it's probably quite fun on them just for getting a few extra hits through. But that's probably more in the hopes and dreams than in the mathematically sound. A little shout out to Scary who's in the chat. Archon Scary is here. Don't you worry, Scary. This was a UK Archonference, so I've rallied up all our UK Archons for this one. That's why there was no invite. But I'm sure the assassins will be round to get me in the future, as is good and thematic and on point. Let's continue going through the stratagems there, Adam. So we've obviously talked about the sustained and lethal. What else are you liking?
Probably my next favourite is honestly the Fight on Death. Fateful Roll. So Ben's loving this as well.
Yes.
So it's the same thing again, fight phase, any Drukhari or Harlequins unit, that was selected as a target, you fight on death on a 4-up. Unless you're losing the wager, and you fight on death on a 3-up.
I need to definitely make better use of this.
This is also why I quite like the infiltrate enhancement.
Yeah.
Because if you tell someone, okay, charge this big brick that's 9 inches away from your deployment zone, but they will fight on death on a 3-up.
Yeah.
And they do have lots of attacks with dev wounds.
Yeah.
It just scares them a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, this one I didn't really use earlier on, but I can definitely see the application, and especially if you can get it going on 3-ups, that's a big deal. So when we were writing this up for Goonhammer, I think for Drukhari units it's massive because it's almost you're not a world away from getting to just swing before you get hit, right? Because you can empower a Drukhari unit at the start of the phase. If you know that's where the engagement is happening and you know you can be fighting on death on a 3-up, you just chuck a pain token on it. That thing is going to hit quite hard into whatever is trying to take it out. And this is why I like Grotesque, because Grotesques also have the fight on death. So you can be building multiple kinds of fight on death into your list at the same time, which I think is really, really fun. Very, very effective strat that I have not yet used at all. There we are. Anyone else got any other stratagems from the suite that they like? So, Julio, you didn't like the lethal and sustain. So, what do you like?
I'm gonna be very basic with my pick, and I think is the no Overwatch.
Okay, nice.
I think is my favorite. You could argue that we had access to that already in the relic from Sky Splinter, but I think this is much, much better. The obvious constraint of the relic from Sky Splinter is it was on that unit. And there are so many instances which you might have wanted on something else, to the point that over the past months, I even stopped using that relic because already the new Vect ability was already the best solution that we had against Overwatch, in my opinion. If you play, keep in mind the CPs that your opponent has, then that's better than the relic. And the relic, I think it's 20 points in Overwatch, 25 points, so on the expensive side. And I found that those 20 points are actually unlocking a lot of things in the list. So this is great. No points commitment, any unit, any phase, pretty much, and is really great. It's really great, especially against shooty army. Now it's difficult to say where the meta will go, but Necrons definitely are gonna be shooting. They have some units that Overwatch on 5s. They have so many shots, so that's gonna be great.
Yeah, I think
very basic, very good.
Certain armies where setting up an Overwatch lane and sitting back is just their plan, right? So I think having an immediate absolutely not in the locker for that is really useful. I'm actually more in love with the idea of it on your little scory, trashy things than I am like the idea of being able to put your OC out and deny the point and they can't do anything about it. That if that's your turn, that's all it is. You don't even need. It's just not like for that entire edition. Playing Drukhari has been losing one thing and then getting to play with another thing like over and over and over again. And this breaks that in as much as you can just have a turn where you just put a unit out, keep it very quiet, deny primary and go. And this strat lets you do that in a way that previously armies were not letting us do, or armies that were playing assertively and creating lanes for us were not letting us do. So I
finally being able to contest an objective to a great and clean one without big flames,
without getting murdered.
Dream.
Yeah, I think it can buy you a whole turn. It could buy you a whole battle round sometimes if you just don't want to engage yet and you're still moving, repositioning everything else, and you're just like, I just want to deny primary. I think that's absolutely, very, very valid and very good.
Worth noting, if you use it in the movement phase, it lasts for the whole turn. So like Lilith could use it moving out into like a flamer range, and then it's still going to last until when you charge as well.
Beautiful.
And so you could then reuse it in the charge phase, right?
Also, you could have 2 phases of it from 2 different armies, 2 units.
Very good.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Ben, any of the other strats been appealing to you, mate?
Advanced shoot and charge. Oh my word! Caught in a raider, just zoom.
It's so good.
Get dead.
That was my first. That was my first use of it today. They failed to kill an ATV and then charged into some infiltrators, but it was still awesome.
It's so fun. Just absolutely flying out of a raider with the court, taking someone's home objective and being like, "Now what are you going to do?"
Yeah,
absolutely nothing. Get out of it, cultists.
It's there's some really fast units, and then some of our slower ones really like it. So Talos, really like it. Grotesque, really like it. So I think, I don't know whether it's just because I'm on a Coven hype, but I'm excited. I think being able to get that extra reach out of things like Grotesque is a big deal, because those units are very, very slabby. And I'm trying to think what else we had. So we've got no Overwatch, which we've covered. Fight on Death, which we've covered. Lethals, Sustain, which we've covered. Advanced Shoot and Charge. Very, very good set. And we've still got 2 more, right?
We do.
We got -1 to hit and the reactive move.
Okay. And Paulie, what do you think of the -1 to hit?
It works in both phases, right? Is it both in shooting and both?
It's just fight.
Only fight phase.
It's a worse line than fast.
It's fight phase. But
it's nice, though. It's nice. Like, it's, we haven't had access to that since Real Space Raiders. If you put them on like Sky Splinter, so for me, I think it's good. I think it's good. Like, it's gonna be that phase where, like, you're caught with the Archon. They're always like a lot hardier than most people would expect. Because I think a point to make is this detachment is, in terms of defense, is weaker than the other two, because obviously Real Space Raiders, you can lean into the -1 to wound on the Coven, and Sky Splinter by nature is more resilient due to Wraith-like retreat, whereas in this one, this is like the only real like defensive ability for you, a bit more punchy. So it's nice to have. It's just, again, all of these strats are good, but you're going to be, I don't think you're ever going to use it. I don't know when you're ever going to use it, because you're going to be fighting on death, you're going to be sustained hits, you're going to be advanced and charging, and Overwatch all the time. And to jump really quickly into the Dance Macabre, the reactive move, it's 2 CP, it's too expensive. It's nice that if you're losing, you get the 6-inch move, but if you run Reaper's Wager for a whole year, that strat's going to win you at least 1 game. That's going to be an anecdotal.
It absolutely will win you games.
Win you a game.
But I think it's nice if you've got the CP stash just to have the threat of it out there. I think it's definitely valid. I ended up using the reactive move more than I thought today in the first game. I think I used it twice in 1 game.
Another thing to note on it as well is that it does let you get back in a transport.
Yeah, and I think with the way that this detachment plays, and the way I've always seen reactive moves as being more scary is as pushing forwards. It's actually it's the they're putting they want to put like a skirmish character or a skirmish unit out, and then they come forwards. We've got some kind of quite strange scary chat going on. I think he's summoned his Discord. His acolytes are in to let us know that he's lurking. Very, very funny. This is some proper Drukhari shenanigans. As for the -1 to hit, I mean, the -1 to hit is good, right? It's just straightforward good. I think it's good once you've got a big jam of units engaged in combat, and it's just, let's say, just certain units, like, again, the Grotesques. The Troop is very annoying to shift once it's got a -1 to hit on it as well. -1 to hit and a 4-up in run. A lot of skirmishing units simply are not going to do enough damage to that. And Mark Corn in the chat saying, keeping it a bank of 2 CV in case you need it. I completely agree. I do think it is an expensive strat, the reactive move. But what I do think as well, I think this detachment with a 1 CP reactive move, I think that would be quite a lot. I think that would be quite nasty for people to deal with. If you went just full in infantry mass horde with this, and then you're reactive moving all the time, I think it would get quite tough. So I can see why they've done it. And I think, we'll get to it a bit later. I think if we've got an issue at the moment, it's that our points are probably just a little bit too high across the board, which, as alluded to in the chat, might be Scari's fault. He's got us nerves. So I think Drukhari might be a little bit expensive. That's probably more of an issue in some ways. Alrighty, so that's the kind of core tools, and obviously it's 10th edition, so we've basically summarized it now. But if we're thinking about early impressions and games and stuff that you guys have actually used, what are the initial kinds of combos and sort of play experiences jumping out at you so far? If we think about you, Paulie, first to start, have you managed to get some games this year?
I've not played, so I've got 2 games scheduled around the Christmas sort of schedule with a friend who plays Demon, so his detachment's just come out, so we're trying to work out a day. My friend Lee collects Space Wolves, but Space Wolves aren't out yet, are they? So again, I think that's going to be a game in that sort of weird period between Christmas and New Year. So I haven't played, but at the same time, obviously, I've been feverishly writing lists. And I guess my advice to myself and to others is what I found more enjoyable is I really like my list. I really like my Sky Splinter list, but there was about 100 to 200 points worth of stuff, which I was always chopping and changing. So I think Reaper's Wager can be applied to archetypes of the other detachments.
Yes.
So I think you can take your Real Space Raiders detachment and make some changes, add some Harlequins, and same with Sky Splinter. So again, I think I'm looking at a few, not obvious choices. I think I really want to try the brick out, right? The 11, 12 troops with the Troop Master.
Yeah.
I'm really excited by that, the Reaper's Cow. And the Solitaire really, really interests me. I just know, talking to especially you guys and others, they're like, it's a bit of a meme choice.
Look, I'm 100% going to use the Solitaire. I'm not even going to pretend I'm not. I'm taking it on RTT, and I'm 100% taking the Solitaire to the RTT, and I don't care whether it goes well or not. It's just fun. I can see all the potential, right? You could see the potential.
Yeah.
And is it going to let you down? Maybe.
Yes. Or maybe, yes.
But I think all the choices seem good. I think the Void Weaver really interests me. I keep using the term interest me. Like, I'm not settled on my list. I think the Sky Weavers, again, interest me. I know a lot of Eldari players like them.
Yeah.
But I looked at their Haywire output and I was like, I'd rather just find the extra points for some Haywire Scourgers because we know what they do. Probably a bit too expensive now, but they still do what they did with the Haywire Scourgers with sustained hits with the reroll ones to wounds. Become good. That's probably and just chat and talk about bombers because obviously Scar is bots.
I think the bomber is great in this attachment.
The bomber with Dark Dice with sustained hits and the ones to wound if Drukhari are losing a wager.
That's terrifying.
The bomber's really good. I think there's so many data sheets who get a bit of a foot up now with the wager.
Yeah, you're definitely looking for those ones that just have a volume of attacks that is the sustain and the lethal becomes relevant, right? With the rerolls, I agree with you.
That
Sorry, you go, Gia.
If you have the bomber, that's one of the reasons why the relic, the conductor, became important because you might want to make sure that you can switch the wager if you have a bomber and you want to use that strat. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Patrick Barron says the Solitaire has a lot of points for a 3-1 Waddle. You're absolutely right. It is. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. I cannot believe that thing is 3 wounds. It's an absolute tragedy. 3 wounds, 3 up in one. My fear with the Solitaire is just that you will, to get the use out of it, you'd end up spending all your precious CP on making the Solitaire do fun things, and that in itself might be a mini game that slightly distracts you from winning the game. But that's a game I want to play. I think that'd be fun. I think it'd be good. And as Riley says, the threat projection is huge. Yeah, it goes a really long way. And I think there's probably an art to using it very cleverly to just sneak in and push out and nick an objective at the back or something at some point late game. But obviously, lone op is something that Drukhari just don't have without plugging a Solitaire or a Death Jester in. So in that sense, getting a lone op involved is actually, really, really valid. Cool. Anyone else want to go with their sort of early experiences? Who's been playing? Who's actually got some games this thing yet?
I've had 3 games so far.
Oh, my word.
I know. Crazy. I've had 1 into the new Guard detachment, 1 into the new Tyrannid detachment, and 1 into Creations of Bile. Creations of Bile was my favourite game because they just wanted to charge me everywhere. And I had 2 bombers for a start. I'm like, get out of here, Chaos Marines. And then he charges me, and I'm like, cool. You charge a Harlequins unit. I'm fighting on death on a 3+. Get out of here, Legionnaires. It was just great. It was so much fun. But my favourite unit combo so far, Drazar and 10 Incubi. If you line it up right to get the reroll 1s to wound with sustained hits and the +1 to wound from Drazar, because it's not Lance, is it?
No, he's just a flat +1 to wound.
It's just straight up in combat, your +1 to wound. Wonderful. It was so good. So good. I really enjoyed that. Takes away the need for the second Archon. It's the same points, and I think he's kind of useful. I think he's actually kind of useful here. I'm being perfectly honest. I think he doesn't get maybe as much use in the other 2 detachments. Sky Splinter, you're already getting Lance.
Yeah.
I don't really know much about Real Space Raiders, so I'm not even going to try and comment on it.
I played one game. Don't say things like that. I've told everyone you're a Drukhari expert.
I'm a Sky Splinter expert.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that combo. And the infiltrating troop. It's just so good. So good. I think it has just a real good point of getting you that early board space, that primary. I've actually been doing a lot better on primary with this troop unit than I have in previous games now, particularly against stuff like Guard, which are pretty good at primary most of the time.
Oh yeah.
I had a great game where I was just like, cool, I can actually control the primary because you're so scared of this potential threat projection I have, this 66 attack dev wound ridiculousness thing.
Yeah,
that's probably not actually going to do anything. If it just touches you, it's just going to sit there and in front of a tank commander and do nothing. But you're scared of it, and that's the main thing.
There's also the conversation of which weapon you take on that brick as well.
Yeah.
Now, with 60 attacks, like I'm in that camp as well, where you probably want to take the more attacks, no AP options, and just farm the dev wound.
Yeah, I think in a meta where there's a lot of skew, it's like, well, chaff it will still go through, and then elites you're going to need the dev wounds to do anything anyway, right?
Yeah.
No.
I think I like the troop. I think it's very cool. And I think it's a little bit like with Bio, where I've been playing Biosanctic Bruiser, where just having something that's dangerous and already up the board makes a big difference. And the whole army with its scout move and pressure and other things is definitely in a good position to push and cause problems, I think.
I think in general the best use of this detachment is playing a list that is very aggressive. And I think I've seen a list that Ben shared before, which are, I think, 2 Beastmaster, Scouting Unit, Infiltrating Harlequins. And I think that's really the build that makes this the unique build of this detachment. You can sort of do it just with this. If you're going first, you're going to punch very hard. If you're going second, you can still sort of hide. And I think that's it. If you like to play aggressive, this is the detachment for it. Otherwise, and I'm going to be a little bit negative here, I did a lot of list building with this detachment, and there's not been a situation in which I say, I could do the same list better with Inari. Because in the moment in which you are mixing, Inari, they give you access to so many more options. And they sort of do the same things. And this stratagems has great... this detachment has great stratagems. But, I mean, doesn't have Phantasm, which is the best stratagem in the game. And I think the limit of this detachment, and again, it pushes against that very aggressive build, is that all the shooting options that we have are quite negligible. The Bomber is good, is super expensive. Scourges, we know them. We always play them. They are not good, though. They are so swingy. The Void Weaver is not good. The bikes, the Highware bikes are not good. And so you sort of have to build a close combat aggressive list to take the best out of it. Otherwise, I can do the same. I put a couple of Warwalker and I'm scouting and I'm shooting. I'm great.
I think that's completely fair. I do think, especially for the high quality, low volume shooting, which we have a lot of, as you say, Inari ultimately, because it's a hit and a wound, just full, that smooths those out better. But I think it's our higher volume stuff, and particularly our melee sort of that really benefits here. And I think, as you say, and so Paulie said we were going to talk about tempo, and we haven't. Paulie, talk about tempo. This is a tempo army. What do we mean by that? We were going to get into that today.
Tempo. So it's about game management. It's about trying to sort of dictate the plays. And I think most Drukhari players have learnt where we're playing finesse. You are playing sort of several turns ahead. Especially if you play on like a terrain layout a lot, especially like UKTC in the UK, you'll have your sort of your moves. You'll have your muscle memory. You'll have like, right, my beasts go here. I have to deploy them first because I know if I don't put my beast down first, then there'll be no space for them to go, and vice versa. I need to make sure my scourges can actually hide rather than my venoms deploying in this sort of way. And then you're playing in that sort of those turns where you know what you're going to be doing, but it's also in the sense of trying to control your opponent, and it's mind games in the nice way. I think you can be quite. I think mind games used deliberately in a negative manner can be bad for the game, but in the sense of like I think was it Ben was talking about it earlier, or Adam, about having the Harlequin brick there, and you're saying, right, he's a bit infiltrated, and if you charge them, they're going to fight on death. You're planting a seed in your opponent's head, and that's going to change the tempo, and you can sort of then use that to your advantage. Anything that you can bend for yourself is good. And then again, it's a case of if you launch that attack, like Julie said, this is this can be used as a very aggressive detachment. I think that's probably where you are going to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
So it's a case of keeping that tempo and building it up, but also not losing steam. So it's a case of like, do you throw everything all at once, try and pin in, but then who's going to do your counter punches? You always need that tempo to be going, but also to control what your opponent's doing as well, trying to sort of pin them back, trying to sort of move block them as well. And again, you're doing all that, you're trying to focus on that, but you're also trying to work out who's going to be winning the wager, who's going to fight here, who's going to fight there, and then are they going to interrupt me and spam my wager plans, but I'm going to fight on death. And it's all there's a lot of brain power in there, and especially if you listen to one of the GW podcasts on Warhammer Plus, it's really good. It's got Kenny, who's like the lead games designer on there. And he was talking about there's a lot of feedback that the fights phase can be too long for some armies. And I think Drukhari is one of the longest. Like, if anyone's ever tried to use a chess clock and he's caught the Archon, like Ben with double caught, I don't know how you actually finish your games. Like, you're going through like 7 different attack profiles or whatever. So it's it can be hard in that sense as well. But there's a lot you can do to keep like the tempo on your side.
Yeah, completely. No, I really agree, and I think it's an army where pushing very assertively and then sort of fighting retreat to make sure you shore up the score lead feels like how it wants to play. It wants to get on the front foot and then get a score lead and then protect it. And it may burn out before it manages to do that in some games, but in general, it's going to do that very well. And obviously, it just has every fight phase control trick under the sun. It's got fights first. It's got reactive moves. It's got fight on death. It's got a lot of ways to go into combat armies too. So I think in that sense, it's going to have a good game into a lot of the melee armies. And potentially it's some of the really fast shooty armies might give it a lot more issues. But I'll be interested to see. I think that might be its main issue, is just having a bit of a glass jaw when it comes to the really speedy shooty ones that can hit them on their terms. Certainly artillery still is something I just try and avoid thinking about as well. I'm going to take it to standout units now, and then we'll be drawing towards a close. But if you were each going to pick one standout unit to use in this detachment and justify it, why? I'm going to start with George. I'm conscious George's tech has been difficult, so I'm going to let George get in there first so we can then sort of deal with any potential lag. What's a standout unit you would use in this detachment, George? Oh, his audio's not on. Oh, God damn it.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, he's got no sound. Oh, George has had a time today. George has had a cursed time. At least he can appreciate it.
He entered the Harlequin mentality and is miming his response.
I'm going to tag it into Paulie to cover for George here.
I think Court of the Archon. I love Court of the Archon. I love him too much, and I think the sustained hits, which I think you can apply to pretty much every single unit in the army.
Yeah,
I think that makes them sing. But especially when they're anything which combines those as well, like the Hellions, like you're getting that extra mileage out. But I think the Court can do a lot for you in this detachment. And again, though, for Harlequins, it's nice to see them sort of like back, especially like alongside the Drukhari. And I think for them, I think the troop are definitely the most exciting part.
Yeah, absolutely. George has just waved a Talos. Patrick says, I speak for George, and he says Talos. I agree. I love the Talos. I played the Talos today. I think Talos, for me, and Drukhari always do the same job, which is you put them in trouble and then you use people trying to get them, right? Put them in the areas that the other stuff can't go to. When they try and deal with the Talos, you can then counterattack onto them with your Scourge and with your other faster things and everything else. And Talos are great. They, once you can get them up to always empowered, they're really, really good. But the Haywire is useful. There's a lot of vehicle skew out there right now. They punch well, and they love being able to advance, shoot, and charge. That's a big deal for them. So yeah, definitely Talos. I'll let you go next. Julio, what's the unit you would definitely use in this attachment?
Well, I think we're saying it's going to be Beastmaster. It doesn't get much out of it. I mean, sustain or lethal is good on the Beastmaster.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a fundamental unit for how this type of list is supposed to play that you cannot play without. It is a unit that I started considering abandoning for Sky Splinter because at 120 is expensive. Ultimately, I didn't do it because there are so many games that are basically won by that unit. And I think it becomes even much more important with this detachment.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think it absolutely loves the strats. We've got Scurry in the chat saying advance and charge on it is great. I agree. I think also, the ignore Overwatch can also be funny if you need to jam it in there turn one and just tie a bunch of gun line up, being able to not take a bunch of damage to a nasty anti-infantry Overwatch is also really, really
I think if you really want to use the 2CP stratagem, the Beastmaster has a massive footprint, so you can actually use it as a reactive wrapping.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's quite smart. Yeah, that's a really smart spot. So I didn't use these ones today. Yeah, go on then, Ben.
The reactive move is only for infantry.
Sorry. Times. We almost discovered something there, but not quite. All right, so we've had Paulie, Julia, George. Ben, what's the unit you're excited to use in this?
Was it going to be anything other than the humble Harlequin troop? I'm
No,
just having so much fun with it. I'm just going to roll 4s for days and have great times. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Harlequin troop I think is definitely good in here. I think you can definitely use one with the deep strike, right, to ingress a second troop and push that. And if you have that and a Shadow Seer, if there was some talk of Shadow Seers in our chat, that gets you 2 bricks with 4-ups and stealth, right? And -1 to hit if you're in combat. That's quite annoying. As long as I think they have to pick their fights well, because they will just get dunked if they wander into the middle of an army, right? And I think that's true of quite a lot of the units here. Adam, what's the unit you are excited to use?
It's got to be Hellions.
Hellions, right. Sell Hellions to me. Let's go.
So, with them dropping down to 75 points for 5, or 150 for 10, it just becomes this missile that you don't want to commit you're caught fully just yet. The Vector is very powerful. Maybe you've got some Incubi there. You don't want to waste them because they're much more expensive now. So the Hellions just go. They're so fast. And yes, it depends on terrain massively, whether you're going to be able to get there easily. But you have advance and charge now.
Yeah.
So you can get around those little terrain issues quite easily. And, I'm majority of the time now playing WTC, where you can play them a lot of the time from ingress, or even just normally deep striking them and then waiting a turn just to threaten a flank because the speed it goes. And I think sometimes we can actually lack, especially if lists are dropping Incubi, we can lack some damage too, which they just get directly into the face. You can use them as a move block, and if you take smaller units, again, just because of the speed, and they come with grenades, which is very important to remember.
That's
so, yeah, 10, quite cheap, can kill things equal to its points order.
And they have fallback, shoot and charge, don't they, Hellions?
Standard, I think it's just fallback and charge they have.
Oh, fallback and charge. Yeah.
So it means a 10, obviously, if you don't really commit to it, being T4 2 wounds, and you have 3 or 4 left, you can fall back, charge into a marine unit, and it will pick them up.
Yeah, what I'm realising is that these are basically damage to Gene Stealers, because I've been using Pure Strange in that role, where it's actually, because they're 2 wounds each, they're that little bit more annoying to get rid of than you think, which means you have to commit other kinds of units onto them to actually deal with the problem. No, that's fun. I like that one. And I've shouted them out a bunch, but I'll shout out Grotesque again. Grotesque is just good in this detachment. They're annoying. Advance and charge gets them where they want to be. They love sustained. 24 attacks, 4 rerolls, AP2 damage 2 is very nice at killing, specifically Marines in particular. They'll bully Marines. But also they are going to go and stodge things up and tie things up and cause problems, which lets all your speedy, nasty, dangerous stuff fly around doing what it wants to do. So I think you're going to need something with a bit of staying power in the list. For me, I really like the Grotesque for that. I think they're really fun.
I am a little bit disappointed, Tom, that you didn't pick the Solitaire.
Right. Well, whilst they're here, I'll say what we've all been saying in the chat for a couple of weeks, is that you will get great stories out of the Solitaire. And so that is a reason to take it. You will absolutely have good stories to tell about it. You're not necessarily going to come out on the right side of those stories all the time. But you will. It's never dull. It's definitely never dull. And it would be fun. I think a list with the Solitaire and the Death Tester just as 2 lineups. I've played a lot of lists where 2 lineups just on the sides in all sorts of maps is super handy for the scoring of Pariah Nexus. So you absolutely could have those 2. It's just that I think, certainly the Death Tester, his output is not much in this detachment. There's another way to get battle shocks. There's no harm in that. But then the Solitaire, Solitaire is... Patrick says Solitaire positioning on a character counts as a unit kill to flip the wages, does it not? It would do, it absolutely would do. And so the Solitaire is, if you want a sort of a precision, like an incision way of flipping the wager, the Solitaire is good. In theory, the Solitaire is good, right? I'm going to say it on paper. That will absolutely work. I think it's just you have to use it so carefully and exactly the right circumstances, or he will get punched to death by like 2 Space Marines, and it does happen.
Is there a danger if you were to go kill a unit which has been led by a character that you'd flip the wager, but then back to yourself like in that same activation? I guess that's the thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Potentially. I think it's so far it's felt fairly intuitive in terms of the pick. I think because we have so much fight phase control with the Archon and the speed, and you can be hitting them quite early. It's felt easy enough to get your licks in with the different units and bounce it around. What I've not yet tried is meaningful Harlequin shooting to get rid of the wager. I'm not sure that any of the units you can bring really vibe enough with the
just
rerolls.
Spikes finishing off a Rhino or something. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like maybe some haywire on like a wounded vehicle. I think that's probably about it. I used 1 Void Weaver and I liked that, but that could easily have been 2 bikes in a different spend or whatever else and done a similar thing. But it was loitering around the flank.
I think the best way to flip the wager in shooting is probably a couple of Melta pistol shot to a unit that you're not going to charge, just standing nearby.
Yeah, absolutely. Just sort of incidental shooting on the troop. All fans of Scurry is watching. Yeah, thank you all the Scurry fans for raiding us tonight. From coming out of the webway, it's been wonderful. Been really, really fun. Please do all hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm going to shout out Zint specifically because he's got a Night Lords logo and he's a Scurry fan, so he's just a man after my own heart. Night Lords and Drukhari, absolutely the 1-2 that you want. Okay, I'm going to open it up just for a general sort of how happy are you? Is always a dangerous question. But if you were going to try and put a number on how happy you are with this detachment, lads, where would you say you are? I'm going to start with Ben because he's always positive.
I'm like a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah,
I'm up there. I'm just happy. We've got new rules. It's fun to play.
It is.
Like it will hit a 10 out of 10 when the Eldar Codex drops, and Harlequins have got great data sheets as well.
Yeah,
that's the only way you're going to get me to a 10, but it's up there. I'm just having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm just here for a good time.
Absolutely. Mark of Corn votes 8. Yeah, I think for myself, I think it's probably an 8 as well. I think those bonus 2 points would just be if it also happened to be so powerful that you're like, oh, I can get up to the very top of the game with this. I love it for theme. I love it for flavor. I think it's a fantastic toolkit. I think Real Space Raid and Sky Splinter both have awesome things they can do, but they are quite constrained in how they can be applied. And then I think this is much more generalist actually in its toolkit. And it just gives you a few things that are just very good for playing solid 40k right now. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. And Scurry in the chat rates it 7 to 8 and 8 to 9 with no Harleys. And this is, as I say, down the line, it might well be that the Harleys don't make the cut. Sorry, man. I think it's absolutely playing it today. I was like, I don't know how much the wager matters, but it is like, look, it's fun to have them along for the ride. Absolutely. Paulie, what would you give this out of 10?
I'll give it an 8, and I'll go with not a negative stance, but an opportunity is in terms of accessibility for a newer Drukhari player. This is quite a confusing detachment. It's quite a lot to get your head around.
I agree. Yeah.
If you've just bought your combat patrol, bought 2 of them, got your incubi, you started getting your Sky Splinter army done, and then you're told, right, you need to go buy 2 troop boxes and then convert a troop master, and then maybe this. I think that's a little bit difficult in that sense. Whereas for someone like me with a wide connection, I love it. In the lore, someone who likes the lore, I think it's really good. I think it's a really cool detachment. It's strong. Again, we're not gonna go. We're not going to go out the Goldilocks zone, going really high up, are we? But it
doesn't feel like that at the moment.
But it's fun, and quite lucky that it feels like our codex might be a while away if we're not getting if we're on 3 detachments already. So still quite a lot of love for an index army. So
having 3 detachments at this stage with no book that's pretty good, right? I
think Drukhari was getting a bit dry, right? And I think this reinvigorates it, and I think the codex for Eldari is going to do even more for us as well.
Yeah, so. It's definitely of all the Grotmas ones, it's that's the one I want to play over all of Christmas. That's what I'm going to be on TTS playing. I'm really excited to do it. I know exactly how it feels for pure Drukhari players because the GSC one is a Tyranid suit one, and I have no Tyranids, and I'm later looking at it it does look cool, but I cannot go and get some Tyranids. So I know it can be a bit gutting depending on where you're at in your collection and everything else. So I do think in that sense, But again, we already do have 2 detachments, so we're a little bit more fortunate than some others as well. Adam, where would you place this out of 10, mate?
An 8 or a 9 for me.
I'm so excited for Julio's. I can't wait. You carry on, Adam. You carry on, Adam.
Yeah,
explain the 8 or a 9.
So it's so close to being like perfect. Well, maybe that's a push. It's got such a wide tool set, right? And I think that's just like the epitome of what Drukhari is as an army. Everything has a role, but also could do something else. It's just very, very flexible. I think that's something that this does really well. Like, for example, real space is usually you go down 1 or 2 avenues, either just very fire and fade or very coven heavy. Sky Splinter is very boat heavy. This feels like you can do a bit of everything. You can include everything in there.
Yeah.
I would like it if there's a little bit more transport play, but can't ask for everything.
I didn't miss it. It was just nice to just be on the ground running around, to be honest. It was good.
I mean, yeah, refreshing, definitely.
It'd be interesting to try a deliberately like transport skewed version of it and see what that looks like. So, and it's in that phase where I'm interested to see, can you just go all in combat, or do you just need your sort of cursory guns? What's the deal with it? It's going to be fun to sort of work that out.
Yeah, the only thing that can get a 10 from me is a pure Witch Cult Detachment. As soon as that comes in the codex, that is me.
Oh, beautiful. Right, Julio, honest, how are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I think you asked this question in the wrong order. Now we're gonna end, like, if you are starting from me and ending with Ben, we were ending at crescendo.
Yeah, you're right, I've done it wrong.
Instead, now we end with the Midnight Sorrow.
Hey, very good.
I would give it a 7.
Okay,
I would give it a 7 because it's not too bad. But ultimately, I was saying list building is sort of the same list building of Inari that I've been playing for a while. And this probably is worse because we got so many stuff this Christmas with the calendar, so many new detachment for so many armies. And it's a 7 because I find myself more interested in doing list buildings with armies that maybe I don't even own, but just because they get so much new stuff. And these, at the end of the day, you end up, I was playing the court, I'll still play it. Yeah, okay, I was playing this unit, I'm still playing it. It's not, that's it. So, 7, not too bad. Yeah. Not super exciting either.
Absolutely. And we'll see if George's connections look a little bit better. George, I don't know how your sound is, but you can, if you'd like, you can hold up your fingers to indicate what you give this out of 10. Oh. Yeah. Oh! I think that was an 8. I think that was an 8. Very good. Very, very nice. Excellent. So anything that gets Talos working will keep George happy. He loves it. Patrick says it lowers Drukhari's win rate. It might. it might. I think it's as I said. We all know. So Scurry's covered it elsewhere. We know that the points changes to Drukhari prior to this coming out were maybe a bit of a kick they didn't necessarily need. It's going to be interesting. I would guess they're being preemptive and careful. They don't want this getting out of hand, as they've done to. I mean, there was a World Eaters playing the chat on World Eaters get this all the time. We're like, better just kick World Eaters again and keep them under control. And I feel like they were just being careful, but we might, as you say, we might actually see some buffs down the line. But it also is going to depend what the Harlequins are like in Codex Aldari. All right, guys, this was our conference. It's been lovely to have all my UK buddies here for the sort of. I've said this is a chat that we're always piping away, and really fun to actually bring those ideas out to the public. Thank you all for tuning in. It's amazing to have so many of you here, and it's really fun to get the raid from the Scarred Cast community. So the message I'm hearing, and Archons are good at sending messages, that maybe we'll try and get Scurry along for the next one, and I certainly will aim to do another one of these in the future because it's been a lot of fun. Get out there and play it. It's a fun detachment. Drukhari is still awesome. Go and kill some people and have a great time. We will see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.